Alma had been dreaming about this trip for as long as she could remember. A scholarship seminar in Kenya, her very first international journey. She couldn't believe it when the acceptance letter came. Months of preparation followed. Interviews, paperwork, shopping, even late-night reading to brush up on the topics. She wanted to make her country proud, but more than anything, she wanted to prove to herself that she could do it. She was finally stepping into the kind of life she had always imagined, one built on purpose, education, and courage. But not everyone was happy for her. Nana Ya, her mother-in-law, never liked Alma from the start. She acted sweet around guests, but behind closed doors, her words were sharp and cold. To her, Alma was just the village girl who took away her precious son, Kojo. She didn't see Alma's ambition as inspiring. She saw it as threatening. The more Alma grew, the more Nana Ya felt like she was losing control over Kojo. So, when Alma announced she'd been selected for the Kenya trip, the air in the house changed. Nana Ya smiled politely, but her eyes held something darker. She started making little comments. So now you think you're better than us? Or let's hope you don't embarrass yourself out there. Kojo, caught in the middle, stayed quiet, too quiet. And that silence hurt more than any insult. Alma tried to stay focused, but the tension kept growing. Deep down, she knew something was off. She just didn't know how far Nana Ya would go to keep her from flying. At church and in front of neighbors, Nana Ya wore a wide smile and always said the right things. She'd call Alma my dear daughter-in-law and even hold her hand like they were close. But the moment they were alone, that smile vanished. Her words turned cold, sharp, like tiny needles hidden in soft cloth. You really think wearing heels makes you a city woman? She'd whisper with a smirk. You're just a village girl pretending to be more than you are. Alma tried to brush it off at first. She told herself Nana Ya was just insecure or maybe jealous. But the comments didn't stop. They grew louder and more personal as the trip got closer. Every day brought a new jab. People like you don't belong on international flights. What do you even know about seminars? You'll sit there like a fool. Even when Alma cooked, Nana Ya would say things like, let's hope they serve your kind of food in Kenya. Something basic and tasteless. What hurt the most wasn't just the words. It was the way Nana Ya said them, calmly, almost playfully, like she was enjoying watching Alma break inside. And Kojo? He heard it all. He was right there when Nana Ya made those sly remarks. But he would just clear his throat, look at his phone, or walk out of the room. Alma wanted him to defend her, to say something, anything, but he never did. Days before the flight, the tension reached a point Alma could no longer ignore. Every smile she forced felt heavier. Every minute in that house felt colder. She was packing for her dream, but it felt like she was packing inside a storm, one filled with silent battles, fake smiles, and smirking eyes that waited for her to fall. The night before her flight, Alma could hardly sleep. Her suitcase lay open on the bed, half full, clothes folded neatly beside her travel documents. She kept smiling to herself as she packed. It felt like her whole life had been building up to this moment. Kenya was just a few hours away, and so was the start of a new chapter. Her heart beat with excitement. She laid out her dress for the airport, triple-checked her passport and seminar invitation, then finally curled up and drifted off to sleep, dreaming of skies and new beginnings. But while the house slept, someone else was wide awake. Nana Ya stood in the hallway, listening for Alma's breathing. When the room was completely still, she slowly pushed the door open. The moonlight lit Alma's sleeping face, calm and peaceful, a sight that only made Nana Ya's jealousy burn hotter. She moved silently to the table where Alma had left her documents. With steady hands, she picked up the passport and invitation letter. She looked down at them for a moment, then slipped out of the room. Behind the house, under the old mango tree, Nana Ya lit a small fire. The flame danced as she opened the passport. Page by page, she watched Alma's dream turn to ash. Her photo melted away first, then the stamps, the signature, the proof of her future. She dropped the rest into the fire and watched it burn slowly, like it was some kind of ritual. She smiled, not a big smile, but a tight, satisfied one, like someone who had just won a quiet war. Back in her bed, Alma shifted slightly, unaware that everything she had worked for was being destroyed just a few steps away. She was dreaming of a plane taking off, not knowing that someone had already clipped her wings. The sun was barely up when Alma woke, heart racing with excitement. It was finally here, the day she would leave for Kenya. She rushed through her morning routine, then went straight to the table where she had left her passport and travel documents. But something was wrong. The invitation letter was still there, but the passport was gone. She froze. At first, she told herself maybe she had moved it without thinking. She searched the drawers, the shelves, even under the bed. She opened every bag, shook out her clothes, checked her pockets. Nothing. Her hands started to tremble. Her breath quickened. "Where is it?" she whispered, almost to herself. Then louder, "Kojo, I can't find my passport." Kojo walked in, rubbing his eyes, looking confused. Before he could answer, Nanaya appeared in the doorway. Arms crossed, face calm, too calm. Alma turned to her. "Did you see my passport? It was right here last night." Nanaya gave a lazy shrug and tilted her head. "Maybe it vanished," she said with a small smirk, "just like your usefulness in this house." The words hit Alma like a slap. Her throat tightened. She looked at Kojo, hoping, begging, for him to say something, to defend her, to demand the truth. But he just stood there, eyes on the floor, saying nothing, not even a whisper. That silence was louder than Nanaya's insult. Alma felt the room spinning. Tears burned in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She had been betrayed again, not just by Nanaya, whose hatred she had come to expect, but by the man she had trusted, the man she had loved, the man who watched her dream burn and said nothing. In that moment, the excitement of the morning died. The flight, the seminar, the future, everything she had hoped for now felt like it had vanished into thin air. But deep down, something inside her started to shift. A quiet fire. A voice that whispered, "This is not how your story ends." Alma refused to give up. Even without her passport, she dressed quickly, grabbed the only thing she had left, a faded photocopy of the original, and rushed to the airport. Her heart pounded the whole ride there. Maybe, just maybe, someone would understand. Maybe there was still a way. When she got to the airline counter, she held out the photocopy with shaky hands and tried to explain. "My passport was stolen last night. Please, I need to be on that flight. It's for a scholarship seminar. I've worked so hard for this." The woman behind the counter looked at the paper, then at Alma, her face blank. She sighed and shook her head. "I'm sorry. We can't let you board without an original passport. Rules are rules." Alma's heart cracked. She opened her mouth to say something, anything, but nothing came out. Her eyes filled with tears, and she turned her back to the counter so no one would see her cry. All she could think was, this can't be how it ends. Just then, a soft voice broke through her thoughts. "Miss, wait." Another airline worker, a young man with kind eyes, had been watching the whole time. He stepped forward gently. "Can I talk to you for a second?" Alma nodded, barely able to speak. He led her to a small corner near the staff desk and asked her to explain everything again, slowly. As she talked about the scholarship, the months of preparation, the missing passport, and the mother-in-law who never supported her. Her voice shook, but she didn't stop. The words poured out like a flood she had held in for too long. The man didn't interrupt. He just listened. When she finished, there was a long silence. Then he said, "Let me see what I can do. Not a promise, but something." And for Alma, in that moment, even a little hope was everything. She wiped her tears and waited, still scared, still broken, but not completely alone. Alma sat quietly in the corner of the airport, her hands gripping the strap of her bag like it was the only thing keeping her from falling apart. Her eyes were red from crying, her heart heavy with disappointment. But she had told her story, and someone had listened. What Alma didn't know was that her words had started to travel. The kind airline worker she spoke to had quietly shared her situation with his team. Within minutes, whispers turned into conversations among the staff. People who had never met Alma suddenly cared about her. Something about her pain felt familiar to many of them. Then a tall man in uniform walked over, a pilot. He had overheard part of the conversation and asked to know more. When he heard Alma's full story, he didn't just nod politely. He sat beside her and said something she never expected. My own mother tried to ruin my marriage too. She thought my wife wasn't good enough. That I know how much that kind of pain can destroy someone. Alma looked at him, surprised. This man, a stranger, truly saw her. He stood up and walked over to the supervisor. Within moments, there was a flurry of action. Calls were made, and an emergency report was filed to the embassy. Staff moved quickly, trying to push Alma's case forward. The photocopy she had brought, once dismissed, was now being treated like a clue to something bigger, something worth fighting for. People Alma had never met became her protectors. They weren't family. They had nothing to gain. But somehow, their kindness felt more real than anything she had experienced at home. Alma watched all of this unfold with tears in her eyes. Not from sadness this time, but from something else, something warm. Hope. For the first time that day, she felt like maybe the flight wasn't completely lost. Maybe strangers could carry her where her own family had tried to hold her back. She sat straighter, a little braver now, as the airport lights shone above her. Her wings were broken, yes, but people she'd never known were already helping her build new ones. Hours had passed. Alma sat on the same chair in the corner of the airport, her body tired, her spirit even more exhausted. She had stopped checking the time. The flight was almost boarding, and she had started to accept what felt like the bitter truth. She wasn't going to Kenya. She looked down at the worn-out photocopy in her hands, the only proof of a dream she had held onto for months. Around her, airport staff still moved quickly, making calls and checking updates. But Alma's hope was fading fast. Her chest felt heavy, her eyes numb from crying. Maybe this just wasn't meant to be, she thought. Just then, her phone buzzed. She almost didn't check it, but something told her to look. The caller ID showed a number she didn't recognize. She answered with a quiet, shaky hello. The voice on the other end was calm, but urgent. Alma Mensa, we've just received confirmation. A temporary travel document is being issued for you. It's being rushed to the airport now. The airline spoke directly to the embassy. You're going to make your flight. Alma sat up straight, blinking. Wait, what? Really? Yes. The voice repeated, gentler this time. It's real. You're flying to Kenya today. Alma's mouth fell open. Her hands covered her face as tears spilled over. Not from pain this time, but from disbelief and pure relief. She could barely speak. One of the airline attendants nearby noticed her reaction and rushed over. Alma held out the phone, still crying, unable to explain, but her smile said everything. The staff around her clapped and hugged her like she was family. It wasn't just a small win. It was a miracle stitched together by kindness, empathy, and people who refused to let her give up. She had walked into that airport alone, heartbroken and hopeless. But now, as the sun outside lit up the runway, Alma stood taller. Her flight hadn't been taken away. It had just been delayed until the right hands reached out and helped her soar. Alma returned home with more than just memories. She came back with a medal around her neck, her name in the papers, and a story that had spread across social media like wildfire. Photos of her speaking at the seminar, standing beside top scholars, and receiving an award for her presentation were everywhere. She didn't share much at first. She just smiled quietly, carried herself with grace, and let the world do the talking. Weeks later, the community organized a youth empowerment event. Local leaders, families, and elders gathered under colorful tents. Alma was invited as a guest speaker, but no one told Nania. She came as usual, sitting in the front row like the queen of the neighborhood, expecting to hear speeches from young people she could silently judge. Then the announcer took the mic and said, "Today, we celebrate a woman who represents courage, strength, and resilience. She faced betrayal and heartbreak, even from her own home, and still rose above it. Please welcome Alma Mensa, the pride of our town." Gasps filled the air. Heads turned. Nana Yass's smile froze on her face. Alma stepped onto the stage, wearing a beautiful blue dress and her medal glinting in the sunlight. The crowd stood and clapped, some even shouting her name. Her face was calm, but her eyes were fierce. She didn't need to mention Nana Yah. She didn't need to expose the past. Her success was the loudest truth. Nana, yeah, sat motionless. Her face drained of color as she watched the girl she once mocked become the woman everyone admired. She didn't clap. She didn't blink. Her plan to silence Alma had failed, and now the whole town saw it too. Alma looked over the crowd, her gaze briefly landing on Nana Ya. No anger, no smile, just quiet power. Then she turned back to the mic and began to speak, not as someone who needed to prove herself, but as someone who already had. After the community event, Alma's name was everywhere, on radio shows, blogs, and in conversations across town. People praised her strength, her intelligence, her bravery. But while the world clapped for her, one person sat quietly in the shadows, filled with regret. Kojo. He watched the woman he once called his wife shine without him. And for the first time, he truly saw what he had lost. Not just Alma, but the chance to stand beside someone powerful, kind, and full of purpose. He had stood by in silence when she needed him most. Now that silence echoed louder than ever. One evening, he showed up at her doorstep, holding a bouquet of flowers, cheap ones, the kind you buy in a rush. Alma opened the door, calm and poised, just like always. Kojo looked at her like a man hoping to fix what he had shattered. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice low. "I should have spoken up. I should have protected you. I was scared, but I miss you." Alma looked at the flowers, then back at him. There was no anger in her eyes, just distance. The kind that doesn't come from time, but from pain. "You didn't just stay silent," she said softly. "You stood beside the woman who burned my dreams and watched." Kojo's face fell. He wanted to explain, to beg, to rewind time, but he knew deep down there was no going back. The woman in front of him wasn't the same Alma who once waited for his support. She had outgrown the cage he helped build. Alma stepped out, walked past him slowly, and said without turning back, "You lost me the moment you chose comfort over courage." Kojo stood alone, flowers still in his hand, watching her walk away, not in anger, but in freedom. And that, he realized, was the true heartbreak. She didn't leave to hurt him. She left because she finally knew her worth. Alma didn't just come back from Kenya with a medal. She came back with a mission. Her story had gone viral. The stolen passport, the kindness of strangers, the last-minute flight, and her powerful speech at the seminar. News outlets across Africa picked it up. She was interviewed on radio and television, invited to podcasts, and featured in magazines. People called her the girl who flew without wings. But Alma knew her journey was bigger than just one stolen flight. She wanted to help others who were still stuck in silent battles. So she started a foundation, small at first, focused on supporting women dealing with emotional abuse from within their own families. She held workshops, partnered with lawyers and counselors, and created safe spaces for women to speak, cry, and rebuild. Women who had been silenced for years finally found their voices through Alma's platform. Each story they shared felt like another page being added to a book that had long been ignored. People donated, volunteers joined, and the movement grew. Alma stood on stages not to boast, but to teach. She told her story again and again, not for sympathy, but to spark change. She spoke for the ones who were still packing their bags with hope, still hiding their tears in quiet kitchens, still waiting for someone to see their pain. One flight was stolen from her, yes, but that fire didn't end her story. It lit a new one. Now, Alma wasn't just flying. She was lifting others with her.